Allison Hack from GHC.
All right, well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate you being here. I would like to tell you a little bit about what we're going to be doing today. Our presentation today is going to be talking about, is there gain to pain? And I want to first of all like to thank Monona Terrace for having us today, and then also Group Health Cooperative for helping sponsor this. Our department is a complementary medicine department, and we're basically a holistic approach to dealing with well-being. And so our two presenters today are two of our providers in the Comp Med department. We have Dr. Ruddy, who's a naturopathic doctor. He meets with patients and really gets to the root of the cause, getting to know them, getting to figure out exactly what's going on, getting their buy-in and empowering them to make better choices and figure out really what's going on with their bodies and looking at the natural approach for what their options might be. And then we also have Miranda Merkes, who is one of our bodywork therapists. So she does massage therapy, cranial sacral therapy, Reiki, sound therapy, and also some somatic bodywork. So all kinds of different modalities that she offers. And then we also offer classes and private appointments at Group Health. So we're really kind of a well-rounded approach to dealing with health and well-being. And what we're going to do today is basically a talk show style interview between the two of them, talking about pain and their experiences and what they've learned. And we really want to make this interactive. So as you're participating today, there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And if you can, just anything that you have a question about or that sounds interesting, write us some questions, keep that conversation going in there. They're going to go through about 4 different questions back and forth. And then we've saved plenty of time for you guys to be able to get your questions answered along the way. So I want to introduce you right now to Miranda Merkes and Dr. Ruddy. Hello.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Here we are.
welcome everybody. I'm very privileged to be part of this new forum. Thank you for showing up today amidst lunch hour, I believe, no less. And this is my esteemed colleague, Miranda. How long have you been in practice?
I have been practicing for over 16 years now.
At GHC?
At GHC for over 14.
Wow, yeah. And I have been at GHC a little over 10 years. I believe it was 2012 when I first joined.
Mm-hmm.
So Miranda and I came up jointly with this idea of creating this format of presentation based on essentially how, clinically our respective work has really transformed in a rather unexpected ways since the beginning of pandemic. And I think, I think all of us can agree many people's lives, including ours, both in personal setting as well as professional, occupational settings, have been really transformed by the challenges that pandemic era has kind of ushered in for us. So we thought, well, what would be more a refreshing approach to creating sort of like an opportunity to discuss health in a more expansive, encompassing way, rather than the old model of, someone, positing themselves as an expert, and then, and just, giving you some kind of prescription or instruction on how to be healthy. I think that mindset is, at the end of the day, a bit limiting, in that it doesn't really take into account that health is really a lifelong process. It's also relational and collaborative and co-creative. So Miranda and I independently in the last few years have made really interesting observations about what type of patients made really robust progress with their health, and the ones that are perhaps stalling, being continually challenged by their circumstances. So I don't know if you have anything to add to how we kind of came to this joint presentation today.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Ruddy said it really well. And it was just really in passing, just having, our offices close by and just having great little water cooler chats, that we realized that we were sort of falling on some similar facts and interesting different healing dynamics than what we had been previously practicing. And yeah, it was just a great coincidence, great fate. to
Yeah, a
happen.
lot of epiphanies that came along. And I also kind of want to drive home kind of our intent for this talk is not, again, to provide cookie cutter convenient answers, because really how I came to be a naturopathic provider was really through a long, arduous process of, I would say, self-reclamation. In my 20s, I badly injured my body through a motor vehicle accident, and the process of kind of regaining my footing, literally and otherwise, had really instilled in me this idea that asking the right questions in life is vastly more important than, again, answers, because answers can evolve over time, and they often risk making us complacent about truly engaging with ourselves in ways that open up doors, so that we don't feel like with any health situation, there's only one way to get to health, well-being, which you and I have talked often about how it's a process anyway. It's not something that will be fixed in relatively short amount of time. So we want you to be as included in this interactive mode. Feel free to ask questions through the chat box, as Allison had mentioned, and we'll get going, I suppose. Yeah. I mean, we have come up with 4 questions we thought that might elicit a dialogue. And if there are other questions at the end of these 4 questions, we are very happy to include those in our dialogue today. And again, thank you for being here. I know some of us in the audience remotely have come to the talk at Monona Terrace, and we hope to see you in person at some point in the near future.
Yeah.
So
yes.
How about I start with one question and you start with the next one?
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. This is very exciting. Oh, I forgot to mention, I know the official title of the talk is there gain from pain? And there is the kind of hidden subtitle, if you will, that I share with Miranda, which is really the objectives of this talk is to share the things that they never taught you in either massage school or medical school or any really healing trade.
Yeah.
And this is something that can only come with probably experience.
Yeah,
A lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
So Miranda, how does one define stress, and how do you know you are experiencing stress? And maybe anyone in the audience, I mean, sit with that question. Hopefully you are seated comfortably, maybe even enjoying your lunch or a cup of beverage like we are.
Yeah, and there's no perfect answer, right, to any of these things, because like Dr. Ruddy had mentioned, there is no cookie cutter fix or treatment, because stress is different for everybody. I love Stephen Porges, the polyvagal theory guy, who expanded on our autonomic nervous system. Most of us know it as rest, digest, fight, flight. When we're operating in a fight, flight, or freeze spawn state, we know we're experiencing stress. But how do we know we're in a fight, flight, or freeze spawn state when most of us are so disconnected from the information our body is giving us?
Yeah.
So I like to define stress as anytime my body responds to a perceived threat or danger. Not my frontal cortex, that wonderful, reasonable, logical part of me, but that survival mechanism, the thing that has kept me alive for all these years and has elicited a response that my body needs to either run, fight, freeze, or placate,
Yeah.
fawn, for survival means. And that's all perceived in my autonomic nervous system. It's, you know, not something that we have control over. It lives in our bodies. And I have come to know and get more comfortable with recognizing when I'm experiencing stress, when I do embody my body, when I'm present and I'm noticing all the things that I normally would ignore and push aside and just power through to get through the end of the day. Really listening to those subtle cues, feeling that heart go a little faster, feeling the chest maybe tighten, maybe the throat tightens. Those are when I know some of the subtle things, but far too often we wait until we have big
Calamitous.
big stress reactions. So either I have a reaction to something or someone that even surprised me a little, because it wasn't rational or logical in any way, or I have a breakdown of being able to function in my normal day-to-day life. So yeah.
That's wonderfully technical of Miranda to share, and I agree with everything she has said, and I concur with her points. Also, being a yoga practitioner and teacher, actually a little bit longer than I've been a clinician, has afforded me a different, also complementary view on what stress is. I think in my own process of, again, healing my body and healing that kind of disconnect that comes from post-traumatic stress, where you kind of get pulled into the past of some event that really nearly claimed your life. And many people can, you know, recognize that sort of tug of war between present and past when something happened with their, you know, situation or career or relationship or whatnot, that you just sort of like, you're filled with a sense of regret. Why did that happen? You know, but, you know, yoga, I think, has led me to understand that when something happened, the most constructive way to process disappointment is, what is the lesson here? I think when we are generous enough to extend that compassionate question to ourselves, often we can really have the first glimpse of what the answer or what the process of reckoning or healing might be. In today's, you know, in present time, my way of understanding stress is that something is stressful if it takes me away from the intimacy of living. And really, it's so, to me, profoundly relevant in this day and age, because as a person who has witnessed my own as well as a lot of people's progress with mindfulness techniques, yoga, or some other type of mind-body tools, when we lose that intimacy, either with our body or with another person within our vicinity, or with our work, with our occupation, we get easily blown around. And I suspect that a lot of people really get blown around in their body a lot. And I share this with the often in yoga when I teach, is that you have two choices. You can either, in terms of stress, you can either be the eye of the storm and really witness life unfolding in all sorts of ways and understand, well, what's the invitation here? What do I do with these challenges, this perceived threat? When in fact, it's just, it's getting a little intimate again. Speaking of intimacy, what am I being asked to do? How am I being asked to respond versus, is this gonna take me for a ride, the wrong kind of ride, not the fun kind of ride? And or if you're not the eye of the storm, your only option is to be the boat that is tossed around and potentially capsized in the process. So that really leads to kind of our interest in teaching patients in our respective line of work to regain autonomy. I think agency, autonomy, sometimes the word sovereignty also comes to mind. It's really the crux of whether or not someone seeking or enlisting the care of another provider benefiting from such relationship. Because the relationship is either therapeutic or I think codependent. And the danger of any relationship that is codependent is you kind of bring out not necessarily the best in each other. It sort of like creates a scenario of perpetually lacking, perpetually needing rescue. And there are instances in medicine where acute health situations are need to be addressed acutely. But modern medicine up to this point has made such little difference. I don't think this is a conjecture. This can be verified through epidemiology, historians and whatnot, that we haven't made that much, we haven't really moved the needle, so to speak, in terms of chronic diseases. And chronic diseases often have their roots in inflammation, which is really what stress brings to our body, is this unchecked inflammation from having a narrative in our mind that is not compatible with how life actually unfolds, which is how your body needs to be present in order to heal itself, I think. Is that,
Absolutely.
So I don't know if you have additional things you want to
Well,
bring.
the only other thing I really like to kind of drive home too is that this stress response system that we have in us, it was created probably even before birth, like if you take into account epigenetics and the fact that there's genetic markers for trauma. But you know, we think about our nervous system as this really, really well, it learns really fast and it just gets better and better and better at recognizing and responding to a perceived threat or danger. So it becomes a really well-oiled machine from the get-go. So, you know, we're dealing with belief systems that have been created since, you know, birth, that we are now easily stressed, easily triggered. So, you know, it's like that invisible stress. There is no person challenging us or attacking us or ready to fight us, but our nervous system has learned that something similar to the situation back when we were, you know, 2 years old happened. And so now I'm going to respond really, really well to anything that even remotely is similar to that situation. So a lot of times I'll be going through the day or week and I think, gosh, it wasn't a stressful week. Why do I feel this way? Why am I feel stressed? I can feel it inside of me, but it was that invisible belief system, and, you know,
and
threat.
much of it, I believe, based on just kind of surveying people's personal accounts of the way they cope with stress or react to stress, there is a likelihood of a lot of it being kind of ancestral. And because people can feel stress without having situational stressors. And so really the journey, perhaps the invitation is how to extricate ourselves from false beliefs, conditioned reactions, rather than true meaningful responses to the immediacy or the imminence of living in the present moment. The present moment is really the only way to greet our future self. I feel like if we make decisions that are truly based on the intimacy of the present moment, we are really setting ourselves up for the best future possible, regardless of our inherent risk for whatever conditions. I mean, we cannot, as human beings, run away from getting older, having a body that shifts and morphs with time. But it does not mean we have to accelerate our aging process through unmitigated stress response, which is always based on acute situations and not appropriately triggered otherwise. So anyway, I'll let you.
All right, well, next question. So what has changed in your respective therapeutic approach to stress and its associated symptoms such as fatigue, pain, emotional afflictions, and sleep changes? Do you want me to read it again?
Yeah, the last. I don't know how we came up with such a wordy question. So now we're like, what?
What has changed in your respective therapeutic approach to stress and its associated symptoms, such as fatigue, pain, sleep changes?
That's the first thing that came to my mind immediately is I think that question came from observing how in the beginning of my practice, I was quite critical of how pharmaceuticals have taken such strong hold of the public imagination about what makes a person healthy. Is, you know, the old model is, you know, if you make the symptoms go away, then there's no problem anymore.
Yeah.
And we can all individually and collectively attest to the fact of how untrue that is. There are instances where it is compassionate to use medications to help somebody out of an acute rut and kind of make room for a more sustainable long-term process of recovery, convalescence. And I thought, well, you know, natural medicine seemed to me at the time, you know, the more elegant answers. But I think the term natural medicine has been somewhat compromised in present day because people would come to me with a bag full of supplements. And it really gave me this epiphany about, wow, simply swapping out, prescriptions from pharma to nutraceuticals really have misled a lot of people into thinking what medicine even means, right? The word doctor came from the word docere, which means teacher. And I feel like we fail to teach fellow human beings, that healing is an active engagement. It's not participating in this consumerism of, if I just line up the right 10 supplements, magically my health situation would be resolved. And you can empirically test that. I can share with you that really skills have to come first. And I'm super grateful that that I had these 4 amazing yoga teachers that got me initiated on this path of mindfulness, because it really makes me very appropriately skeptical of any fit pill engaging the right conversation with the person. I don't think there is a single pill that makes anyone have a real conversation with themselves meaningfully about what needs to be done, what is the way forward, how have I gotten to this point in my life, why am I in this particular clinical quandary, and what can be done even when cure is elusive or not an option. Is there healing to our diagnosis when there's no again convenient solution at hand? And my belief is there is, and Miranda and I have independently kind of like observed that and guided patients toward back to that one of my favorite phrases, self-reclamation. Until there's self-reclamation, regaining of one's autonomy or agency, I believe we're just going to be sort of like continually led in circles to find that attractive magic bullet in medicine, which I don't believe exists.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Carry on.
Yes, very similar in respect to treating symptoms. Being a bodywork person, I just assume that I'm curing people's pain when really pain is just a symptom again. And over the course of, I would say, the first 14 years of my career, I was primarily just as firm as you can go massage therapist. Talk about no pain, no gain. That was what I believed, or, that's what people kept coming to me for. But then I realized they kept coming to me with the exact same thing every couple weeks, every week, every month for years. They never actually got better. They felt really good during the massage, maybe sore the next day, but then better than they were sore from the massage. And then the revolving door goes around and around and around. It would be so temporary. It was like I was a human Tylenol. I was a human ibuprofen. And don't get me wrong, I mean, that's job security right there. Because people love just laying on a table and putting their health in somebody else's hands. But it really started me thinking, I want these people to get better. What's causing this actual chronic pain that they have? We all have it. Oh, neck, shoulders, this chronic tension that we have every single day. Not everyone has in their upper tracts. I have touched young children who already have that growing in their upper tract. So this is stuff that they've developed over the course of their lifetime, and it was just very short-sighted therapy, and I wanted something that was going to be longer. And what I found actually is having somebody be in their body and feel safe, having their body be supported and feel safe for the first time and maybe a long time gave longer tension relief, longer pain relief than this, no pain, no gain, elbow into your, shoulder stuff has done. So that's really, it's completely changed everything.
Wonderful. And I think we should figure out a way to get a bumper sticker that says human Tylenol just for you.
Yeah.
For a tongue-in-cheek bumper sticker. Wow, I think time is just kind of moving along quite quickly here. So we're down to the last couple of questions, and hopefully so far we have kind of back and forth have elicited your own thought process and your own, it would have really been particularly meaningful for both of us if you leave this talk with really more questions than answers, because I think the right questions are actually invigorating, because I don't know about you, maybe you share the same kind of mindset, that to me life is a quest for meaning. And a lot of people, we all engage different forums such as this because we're always looking for a different way, because if we had figured it all out individually, none of us would be in this conversation anymore, right? So I think it's important to always learn to inquire. Curiosity is,
That's
the most important ingredient. So the third question for you is, what is health given your own personal and clinical background?
So just a very quick background. One of the other reasons I've come to change how I think about healing and therapy is my own healing process in chronic pain management for my body. And what I've come to learn, what is health? What is life? It's experience. Is health, I don't prescribe to the theory that health is I am happy and operating optimally at all times. Health to me is I'm able to do things I love. I'm able to be with the people I love and be with them, really social engagement, which is rest, digest, that parasympathetic. And it's a bigger question. It's a bigger thing than just what I used to believe it. I used to believe health was a certain weight, a certain look, a certain capability. And now health is really being curious, I love that. I tell people all the time in one of the mind body practices I teach, being curious, it just opens the doors to so much of what your body needs to heal for you specifically, and for you specifically in this moment. Because tomorrow, that's a different person. So what works for me today and what's healthy for me today may be different tomorrow. So being, open to flow, open to curiosity.
Open to changes.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing is a wonderful meditation teacher, Joseph Goldstein. I think he said that clinging is rope burn. I think clinging to either your past identity or again the old narrative of the brain, the sort of like the one that creates false boundaries between us and the world, really is a hindrance. Sometimes understanding health is first understanding the obstacles to that, to health. What robs you from your own confidence, volition, your own quest and exploration. That to me really holds the key to what health is. And I think you mentioned something about, was it the word pursuit maybe? The idea that we've been sort of like wittingly or not conditioned to think of happiness as the kind of metric for health. It is one ingredient for health. I mean, sufficient level of happiness is integral to a healthy immune system, but also there are other things that are important that will bring. I remember in meditation, it really clicked for me when I read this passage about you can't really find true happiness, which I use the word joy for often because joy implies a kind of cultivation. It's not like an end point. Is that first you have to learn to practice loving kindness. You have to practice compassion. You have to understand what equanimity means, which is, in other words, resilience, or again, not being blown around in your body so much, and sympathetic joy. Sympathetic joy is the idea that it's similar with the African expression Ubuntu, which is, how do we turn the definition of happiness or health, where it really is a recruitment of all the elements and the people. Like to me, I'm only as healthy as the people I care for in my life. Fortunately, is kind of struggling because of our human lack of foresight and long-term vision, and the lack of true scope and imagination in modern medicine. And so it really is like, how do we understand health as, again, an invitation to really show up, like you said, to really show up for people that you love. And hopefully that includes your own body, because, like I order labs for patients from time to time if I feel that they may guide us to a more targeted, strategic way of improving the whatever health metrics that they're interested in, metabolic, hormonal, cardiovascular, what have you. But I also remind them we're not treating the numbers here. What I'm using the other modern medicine tools to corroborate the most important lab, which is your body, your experience living in your body, your experience being this two-pronged entities called, the modern brain and the ancient brain, that is from the neck down, because the ancient brain actually is what gave us the modern brain. And it has been around for several hundred additional million years than the relatively young, adolescent, reactive human brain. And so much suffering in clinical terms or elsewhere comes from a brain that refuses to concede its sort of, position, because we are all accustomed to thinking, well, if my body is in pain, I need to shut it off. If I'm getting closer to the truth of confronting job the impossibility or unsustainability of my occupational workload or a bad, toxic relationship, whatnot, I need to like skirt the issue and figure out a way to make me not feel how crummy I feel. I remember Maya Angelou saying like courage is the most important trait to have before you can consistently practice all the other things.
Yeah.
And I think when people are faced with health challenges, they're really being asked to first and foremost be courageous.
Yeah.
I think Brene Brown said something along the similar line of just be brave, sit with it. And I think pandemic has taught me and many people to, unfortunately, or fortunately, I think the silver lining there is once you sit enough with your anguish and allow rather than resist, like Gabor Mate talked about, trauma is resistance to grief. So that now you delay it and it's emotional debt that you can never pay off because you keep delaying the healing. Because by not sitting authentically with our predicament, we cannot move forward. And guess what? The only people benefit from that is people that can sell you short-term answers to make you not feel what you feel. So that later you have now accrued a much bigger problem to deal with. So I think that's.
Yeah, I found a lot of times sitting with it is so confronting. I hear this a lot in practice from clients, and that, well, I hear without them telling me directly, but I infer from what they tell me about their journey. Oftentimes they are so unwilling to confront and listen to the body and what it's been telling us, that it's less painful, less scary to get surgery, to get injections, to take a medication with all these other side effects. It's easier to do that than to sit and really confront what got you here in the first place. Because a lot of times those things that require true healing are big things, like you said. Like, do I need to change jobs? Something that I require for my life. I need this regular income. It's very scary. And how interesting. We rather go get surgery and put our trust in this other experts than listen to the ancient expert, our own bodies.
The ancient expert that is really, to me, unless you have children, your body, this is something I also bring home in yoga, is the latest, most up-to-date iteration of your ancestral gene pools. That means you through your ancestors have survived God knows what, and that has shaped really the terrain that has made us so far still adapt to the world we live in. And so few of us, probably until we're confronted with mortality, realize how profound it is to sit with our heads sitting on top of 500 million years worth of design. And to me, when you learn to really make sense of that, it is very freeing to now, like, what else can I do, besides taking red pill or even blue pill? I feel like, no pill first. And then when you make the decision to use pill, you've come at it from a place of coherence. The decision feels truly considered and owned. And that's all I've ever wanted for patients. It's like whatever you take on, it comes from a place of unity, because yoga, as the word really implies, both the act of being unified as well as the act, the experience of feeling of being awakened to our own body. I think that is really a much more nuanced way of understanding what healing really entails.
Which brings us to our next question. Our last question, which wraps everything up really well, I think. What are the essential conditions for healing to take place?
Wonderful. I have sometimes questions, sometimes answers, but for that, I think personally, I feel like what has been most profoundly helpful, and I use the word docere, teaching, a teacher, being kind of the root word for doctor. Any of my triumphs, if you want to call it that, or successes in my life, I feel like are really instances that I have no real personal claim on. And what do I mean by that? I think anything that I've done right is because of good teachings, people that have taught me helpful things, people that have shared generously what they've learned in their life, be it, academically or clinically, didactic, and, my clinical experience. And I've been blessed with a few really good mentors. And I know this even in clinical setting, that people who have support, I think it's important to not turn any health journey into a solo expedition, I call it. I think that would be really missing the point. A lot of people that come my way have not only experienced suffering, they created another layer of suffering on top of it by blame, whether they blame themselves or the world, and then that that distorts their relationship with the world even more, or just sort of like held it as their own primary responsibility, not realizing we all become ill because of a set of conditions, and these conditions are truly the areas that we need to focus on, not like my body has failed me. It's more like, what am I not being afforded in my life? And one most important thing is unconditional positive regard, which is a phrase commonly understood in psychology, in behavioral health setting, where when people find good therapists, it's no different than animal love. I think Miranda has a dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a
It's his
dog.
birthday, happy birthday.
Oh
Mike.
my goodness!
5
What a
years
coincidence!
old.
Happy birthday!
Yeah.
Yeah, I think whether it's a dog, a therapist, or a community that you feel like you belong to, that welcome you, that root for you, that really anchor you, right? And one of the books about flow, about polyvagal healing, is feeling anchored. And I've learned to gravitate myself towards those people who exhibit unconditional positive regard. So in other words, love, people who genuinely, and if that is a challenging area for some people, then you have to start with yourself. I mean, I have a book with me here written by the integrative psychiatrist Julie Holland, Good Chemistry, that the first chapter is about self-love, because until you really rise up to the occasion to kind of take the ownership, because we all know whether it's happiness or health, it's an inside job, and the rest of us around you can only serve as counsel. But if you don't sit on your throne and reclaim your agency, it feels a little bit lopsided, the role, and it doesn't lead to a therapeutic engagement, and it's missing a lot of opportunity there. So I think hopefully after today you'll feel like you're now on a quest to not miss your life appointments anymore.
Yeah.
And the other thing is to unlearn our reactivity to every situation, and as though it's the exact situation you've met before, because as we know, and there's an understanding in certain culture that every moment is unique, never to be repeated again. And if you can really practice that mindfully, spiritually, or what have you, I think it helps us untangle ourselves from this insidious, habitual, reactive way of coping that actually deepens the rut of stress. I call it the vicious cycle. Whereas Miranda and I, in our respective line of work, we are trying to introduce, hopefully, the vocabulary of virtuous cycle of learning to stay open, curious, and less judgmental, and becoming over time, with practice and compassion, more insightful, and become resilient. I think that is kind of where I'm at today. Saying hello to my future self here.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
do you want me to repeat the question?
Nope. What do I think is essential for healing? Safety. My body needs to feel safe. Because of all those amazing neural connections and pathways that were created years ago during a stressful event or a time when my system went into fight, flight, or freeze. My body has decided that things are unsafe. So practicing things like neural exercises to create resilience. So first, healing my nervous system, getting me back into that social engagement state, the rest digest state, or working it out so it becomes stronger. So things that I experience through life, stressful events, triggers, if you will, don't bounce me so high into this fight flight state. Maybe it just a little bit, but I'm able to come back down a lot faster. So I create this resiliency, so I'm not as triggered easily, and I'm able to get regulated and feel safe again faster, so my body can do the healing that it needs. Our bodies heal the best when we're in that regulated state. It's what's the word? Suppressed when we're in a fight, flight, freeze, fawn state. And really the key to start with safety is mind body, some body awareness practice. I love Focusing by Eugene Gendlin. It's a 6-step process to get me into my body and out of that frontal cortex, because if my frontal cortex could fix it, then and reason through it, then I wouldn't be here today. None of us would be. We would just be like, yes, everything's fine. There's no threat to us. But alas, that ancient body, system is really strong. So body awareness, and that keeps me in the present. That keeps me grounded too. And it allows me to be curious and not critical. I love that, curious and not critical. Another key thing for me is authenticity. Being connected and supported by people that are able to be authentically them. Supported and loved and connected to people who allow me to be authentically me.
Yeah.
We're safe in a tribe.
Yeah.
So without our tribe, without our connections, we don't have safety. If we don't have safety, we don't have healing. And we need it to be authentic. Hans Selye, the Canadian researcher of stress, he defines stress and coined it as we use it today. One of the things he says about modern day stress is the majority of it is emotional stress. And the vast majority of emotional stress comes from trying to be somebody else. So being authentic, being safe with our tribe, authentic.
And thank you for pointing that out. I think that the comparison thing is a real risk factor, like comparing ourselves with our younger self, comparing ourselves with our siblings, with our sometimes even partners or colleagues and whatnot.
Or the fantasy.
Or the fantasy version, idealized version, the social media version. And I think the artist's way holds the key, where a true artist lives through contrast in life. So every rite of passage brings something new to our way of seeing the world, relating to the world, and therefore changing ourselves. I think until we see something differently, we're not going to really act differently and heal differently. And I think that is kind of like a way to nicely sum up, is to to extend that courtesy of compassion by not comparing, by being curious, not critical. Thank you so much for pointing that. I think we have a few minutes left.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a way to look at our question and Q&A.
Yeah, I believe Allison's gonna read any questions or comments off, and then we'll try to answer them the best we can.
Yeah, we have a 5 minutes, and it looks like we have 5 questions, maybe. So one of us can answer it. We don't have both. You know, if you feel strongly about the question, then go right ahead.
Yeah.
So
Right. Yep, and we've got quite a few questions coming in. So just so everyone knows, what we'll do is we'll answer as many as we can in the next couple minutes, and then we have your email address, so we'll respond back to you individually if we don't get to your question today, because just a few minutes left here. So just a couple here. Just one for Miranda first. Can you please explain your definition of body work?
Body work. You know, it's a general term that I'm not just doing Swedish massage or myofascial release or a specific technique. Body work meaning I'm pulling all of my knowledge and creating a treatment that you and I both agree on is best for your body to feel safe and get the relief it needs. So it just doesn't box me into the Swedish massage or deep tissue massage or sports.
human Tylenol.
Yeah, or human Tylenol. Yeah.
Excellent. And then maybe Dr. Ruddy, you can take this one. What about chronic stress symptoms that affect the mind more than the body? Are the healing approaches similar?
I think that's a great question, because over the years, I've come to no longer separate the mind and the body. Actually, the newer insight, clinical insight, is actually, it's more accurate to say body mind, because the mind encompasses, in my definition as a yoga teacher and as well as a clinician, is the whole swath. But the brain is part of the mind, but the mind is not just the brain. I think I often share the analogy of horses, where you can think of your body as this workhorse that runs the danger of becoming either a racehorse that never quits the track, or a show pony that only lives to do other people's biddings, to only perform. Those two types of horses are the ones that accrue chronic stress, because chronic stress does not exist in wildlife. Animals are more discerning than us in that they are only triggered when it's acutely relevant, when their life is facing immediate extinction. We as human beings, because of the way we accrue stories, and we are not practicing what I call mind-body hygiene, a kind of flossing, then we start to identify with our past so strongly that we never quite ever arrive at the present moment anymore, because it's all about what has happened and what I'm afraid might happen, instead of truly ruthlessly investigating the present moment and say, you know what? I have absolutely no reason to be chronically stressed, because my feet are on the ground. I just ate a delicious lunch. I napped. I went to yoga, and I slept well, or whatever it is. I think the idea is incrementally we can learn to untangle by understanding that chronic stress response is not biologically compatible with living, and therefore it's not really a good strategy. Hopefully that answers the question. I don't think there's a separation. I think what you perceive in mind and body really are two sides of the same thing. Yeah.
Great.
Excellent. Thank you. We only have 1 minute left before we need to end today. So all the other questions, we'll be reaching out to you and getting those answers back, because I want to make sure that we do justice to your questions. They're very thoughtful, and I think we can get some good answers back to you. So I just wanted to let everyone know that Dr. Ruddy does have, if you want to meet with him one-on-one, he does have appointments available for both GHC insured members and as a fee-for-service type of situation. So you can come see him at Group Health. Miranda, if you are a group health insured member, you can see her for some of those bodywork appointments. Otherwise, she also teaches a number of classes, and those are open to the general public as well. And you can find information for all of that on the group health website, so ghcscw.com. And I just really wanted to thank you for taking the time for spending it with us today. We really appreciate it all, and definitely we'll reach out to those of you we didn't get those questions answered to. And we hope to be back soon with another one of these wellness talks, probably in the fall. So stay tuned for more of this. Thanks so much, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Ruddy and Miranda. And thank you, Misty, and Monona Terrace for hosting us today.